He's the third generation to lead the family firm that is now a global giant. Tony Smurfit, CEO of Smurfit Kappa, sits down for the CNBC conversation. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Karen Cho. I've come to a Smurfit Kappa plant in Kent, England, to speak with the company's CEO. Smurfit Kappa can trace its roots back to the 1930s in Dublin, Ireland, when Tony's grandfather Jefferson Smurfit bought packaging mills to serve the local market. The business was then taken over by Tony's father Michael, who expanded it internationally. Tony Smurfit spent years learning the ropes before taking the top job in 2015. Since then, he's faced some challenging times. In 2018, Venezuela's socialist government took over the group's operations there. In 2020, he faced the pandemic, and more recently the group pulled out of Russia due to the invasion of Ukraine. Still, Smurfit Kappa is an industry leader. It has operations in 36 countries, employing over 48,000 people. And to help secure the firm's future, aggressive sustainability targets have been set. It wants to be net zero by 2050. It's already seen a 41% reduction in fossil fuel emissions since 2005, and it has reduced its water consumption by around 6% annually. Smurfit Kappa also funds social projects around the world and is targeting a more diverse workforce in what has traditionally been a male-dominated industry. Tony Smurfit, thank you for sitting down for the CNBC conversation.
Thank you.
We are sitting in a Smurfit Kappa facility, one of over 350 that you operate across the world, a truly global business. And on that note, I want to start by asking you about the pandemic. Your plant in northern Italy was at the epicenter of the European outbreak early on. What response did you implement, and what was it like being a CEO making those decisions?
Well, it was a very challenging and interesting time, of course. We had to learn on the go. And one of the things I said straight away is we have to communicate. So we quickly adapted across the company to use those technology to communicate what was happening. And from our learnings in Italy, which we got complimented on by the Italian government, we actually used those learnings and translated them across to Spain, which was the next epicenter, and then of course across Europe. And in a sense, we were ready in the Americas when it happened.
So you as CEO at that particular point in history, making decisions, did it feel like it was something quite unique?
It felt totally surreal in many ways, because you saw what happened in Wuhan, and then it translated to Italy, and then around to Spain, and then of course all of Europe, and we were all in lockdown. But in a sense, I felt I had a certain responsibility to all of our employees to make sure that they were as safe as possible. And we were transferring PPE from Spain to Mexico, from Mexico to southern Argentina, to make sure that our people were as safe as possible. And I think, when we did a survey afterwards, everybody has recognized what a great job we did in keeping them as safe as feasible during that time.
Another global trend has been rising prices. What are you seeing in your supply chain? How are you being affected?
It's interesting, Karen. In the initial stages of inflation, if you remember, I was on CNBC and I said there was this balance between people saying, oh, this is all transitory. And I actually did say to you guys then, I didn't believe it was transitory. I thought it was really going to happen. And so what we've had to do in our business is get ahead of the curve and make sure that we didn't fall behind these inflationary costs, and we've had to pass those on. Thankfully, our demand levels remain very strong, so we're able to do so. And in a sense, across every piece of our business, we are seeing cost increases. So that inflationary cost is being put through to our customers in the form of boxes.
The geopolitical focus is on the war in Ukraine. This had an impact on you on two fronts. Smurfit Kappa exited its Russian business, but I gather you also have an impact too in the supply chain from the war in Ukraine. Just flesh that out for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's very sad, but we felt we had no option but to exit our fantastic Russian operations. We were by far the best company in our sector in Russia, and we are exiting that as we speak.
And this is a growing business for you too.
This was a very strong growing business, and we're investing in it strongly. And it is also utterly unnecessary, of course. But we have felt we strongly had to stand with the people of Ukraine and make a statement. And so we think it's morally the right thing to do. Of course, the disruptions are all over the place because of what's happening in Ukraine. I mean, we see it in less truck drivers. A lot of truck drivers across Europe are Ukrainians, and they've gone back to fight for their country. We see some of our input costs, such as starch. Starch is derived from wheat, and wheat is going to be as you can see, is in short supply because of the war, and that's going to create a disruption for our starch, which is basically our glue to make boxes and paper. So we are seeing a lot of different areas. A lot of our customers are affected because they were getting components from Ukraine, which are no longer coming for the foreseeable future. So that's going to create some disruption for us.
I want to ask you about another troubled region, Venezuela. Smurfit Kappa had been in the country since 1986. That all ended in 2018, very dramatically. Just run us through what happened.
Oh, it was a terrible thing, Karen. We had, as you say, operated there very successfully, very good business, people very loyal to Smurfit Kappa, but the government kept squeezing and forcing out much of our customers, actually. And eventually they forced out so many of our customers that our business became, relatively small there, but still profitable and a good business with good people. Effectively, the government came and raided our business and tried to arrest some of our employees and threatened our people. And so, we had to exit at that stage. And clearly, we're seeking compensation for that, which is now in the International Settlement Court. And we'll see what happens. But it was, frankly speaking, dreadful what happened to our business. We had a beautiful business. We were by far the biggest producer in the country of boxes and paper. And it was ruined by a government that clearly was intent on seizing assets which didn't belong to them. What
does it say to other businesses doing business in Venezuela?
I think it's a very difficult place to do business under the current regime, and certainly, I think that we would hope one day to go back to Venezuela, but obviously would have to be welcomed back by whatever government will be there.
There's been a big debate in business circles about how supply chains have changed during the pandemic, that you need to build out more local operations. Is that something you're witnessing in your own business, and is it having a dramatic impact on M&A?
I would say it's having a dramatic impact on M&A. It is having an impact in certain of our regions. We don't operate, for example, in Asia, but we are seeing in our Mexican business a lot of onshoring coming from China to northern Mexico. And that is obviously helping our volumes a lot. So I think having more local production is good for our business, because a corrugated box, which is either coloured or non-coloured, it doesn't ship very far. It ships about 300 kilometres. So the more local production you have, the more volume there will be locally, and that's good for our business.
Still ahead, we find out what it takes to go fully green.
The industry itself is becoming more and more sustainable as we invest in best available technology.
Smurfit Kappa has 355 production sites around the world. The group's CEO, Tony Smurfit, gave me a tour of one of them to explain the process that goes into fulfilling our packaging needs. It's a heavy industrial process, of course, so health and safety was paramount, hence the high vis and hard hats. So there's a lot of packaging here. Where does this all come from?
That comes from you, and it comes from me, it comes from the general public. All of this here is recycled material. So you can see across this whole area, there's old corrugated cases or mixed waste that is collected either at households or collected by industry. And we have subsidiaries that put this all together into bales, and then they go into this pulper, and they're basically broken down into fibers. And when they're broken down into fibers, all we do then is we put it on the paper machine, and that will become paper again, which will become boxes again, which will ultimately become this again. And we just continue to do this circular type of motion. So that's why, Karen, really it's important that people understand that corrugated paper is fully recyclable, fully biodegradable, and is a really good product.
I can see there's a lot of water going on here, a lot of water facilities. How important is water to the operation?
Well, you don't make paper without water. Basically, the water melts those old boxes down to fibers and you use a lot of it. But in that process, it gets very dirty. Water comes into our system and goes out down there. But in the meantime, before it goes out down there, it goes into that reactor, which basically has bacteria in it, which eats all the bad stuff. And then from there, it goes into a settlement tank, which basically aerates the water, cleans the water, so that when it goes back, it's as clean or cleaner than what it was when it went in. And that's really important. And that's in all paper mills across the world, that's very heavily regulated and controlled to make sure that happens.
So how much R&D goes into innovation that is about getting some sort of sustainable outcome?
R&D is an essential part of our existence, whether it's making the paper machine go faster, whether it's getting more material out of the waste paper, whether it's cleaning the water, making sure you use less chemicals. Everything is a really important part of our business.
What sort of agricultural measures have you implemented that bring sustainability into the business?
We have our own plantations, we employ local people, we give jobs in the local communities. It's really a pleasing thing in that particular area. Obviously, where we buy trees across the world, whether it's in Sweden or Spain or Austria, those trees that we buy, we source from sustainable sources monitored by PEFC or FSC.
From trees to pulp to paper and packaging, Tony took me to the very heart of the operation. So we're standing in the control room. What happens here?
Well, basically, people that are a lot smarter than me operate these machines and make sure the paper that goes onto that wire up there is at the right formation, has the right consistency, and then all of that process basically dries these fibers to make them into paper again. So this controls everything.
Do we need to be concerned about that alarm?
No, it's fine. We're okay for the moment.
We keep hearing about digital acceleration. This looks like it's a highly connected factory.
Absolutely. Everything is, all the tanks, all the press sections, they're all connected to make sure that we have the best information that allows the process operators here to make sure that they're producing the best paper for ultimately their customers.
Now, we've spoken a lot about lifespan of products, and as we talk about a corrugated box, what is the lifespan of one of those products?
We think, basically, if you think about a box, it's made up of fibers, and each time those fibers are recycled, they lose a little bit of their length, and ultimately, if they become too short, you can't bond them together. But I think a corrugated box can go basically 10 times before it actually goes into nothing. So about 10 times would a corrugated box would have a life cycle of.
And as you look at the industry more broadly, not just what you're doing, but what rivals are doing, how far away do you think they are from full sustainability?
Well, I would say our industry is fully sustainable. I mean, everything that we do is biodegradable, is recyclable. So if you think about our industry from the get-go, we have been a sustainable industry. And obviously what we have to work on as an industry is, the wastewater that we have, which we, as I mentioned earlier, is getting more and more clean. We got to think about the chemicals that we put in to make sure that those chemicals can be recycled, and of course the amount of heat that we put into the air, and that's a lot of the investments that we make. We reduce our emissions. So the product is sustainable. The industry itself is becoming more and more sustainable as we invest available technology.
Thank you very much for showing me around today.
It's been a huge pleasure, and thank you very much.
Now, I want to get into the specifics of your sustainability efforts, and under the Better Planet 2050 commitments, you're targeting net zero by 2050. Are you on track?
Yes, with a caveat, I would say that we see a very clear route to 65%. So we're going to be around 65% of our 100% by, let's say, 2030. The other 35% is going to be much more challenging, and we're going to have to look for new technologies. We're doing hydrogen in one of our paper mills in southern France, and if that works, we'll build that out a little bit. So I think it's going to be challenging for the rest of it, but yes, we're on track.
In recognition of your sustainability efforts, Smurfit Kappa became the first FTSE 100 company to gain 5 stars for supporting the United Nations Development Goals. What social initiatives have you introduced that will help communities that you operate in?
Well, there's so many of them, Karen, to be honest. We have a school that we do in Colombia, which we've been awarded national medals for, that brings young children from impoverished families all the way through to secondary school, which is a beautiful thing. We support schools all over the Americas. We support handicapped people in Poland. We've done a huge initiative recently to help the people of Ukraine, together with the Red Cross and local charities in Poland. Really, we have so many projects that it would be difficult to say. You can't look in the mirror and say, all I've done is made money. You've got to look in the mirror and say, you know what, I've done good as well. And that's what motivates my management, to make sure that they do that. And that's why we have funds to be able to do that within our company, and we really push that through.
Diversity and inclusion is also a big focus here at Smurfit Kappa, and I believe your ambition is to ensure that there's female representation above 30% within the company. What steps are you taking to ensure this happens?
We're hiring as many females as possible. We always go for the right candidate, but clearly, as we start entry level, we are making sure that at least 50% of our graduates are female, at least. So as we bring people through the organization, this is, it has in the past been seen as a bit of a smokestack industry. We are now completely different. Our factories are much cleaner. We're seen as a green company. We're a much more attractive place to work for people. So we believe we can attract many more females into this company going forward. And frankly speaking, the female managers we have are just fantastic. So I want more of them. Rather than less. I mean, they're great for our business. They've great understanding of what makes business tick. So, I'm really keen to get as many people into our business, and 30% is just a starting point. But clearly, we're starting from a lower base, because if you look at where we were years ago, it wasn't an attractive industry to come into. It is now an attractive industry, and so over time, you'll see our female representation grow quite significantly within the company.
Coming up, Tony gives us his insights into leadership.
Sometimes the guy on the factory floor is more intelligent than the boss. In fact, often.
Welcome back to the program. I'm Karen Cho. I'm speaking with Tony Smurfit, the CEO of paper and packaging company Smurfit Kappa. I know you're proud of the company's history, and I saw a big timeline at the entrance when I walked in about where the journey has been. Mm-hmm. The company's history goes back to 1934. 4 years later, it was acquired by your grandfather. Then it was run by your father, Michael. Was there pressure on you to go into the family business?
I wouldn't say there was pressure, but it was always something that I was expected for me to do. I thought I would breed racehorses at one stage. I thought I would become a golfer at one stage, and I wasn't good at either of those, so I decided to come into the business. And I started.
All exciting pursuits, though.
Yes, I understand, but I would always miss that vital putt in golf. But no, I think that I always wanted to come into the business, to be honest. I knew the business from when I was born, really. And I would see my father building the company from nothing. I mean, effectively, when he took it over, it was 2 box plants in Dublin, and it became a global powerhouse. And so I was part of that journey. And, while it was an improbable task that I would become CEO, it nonetheless was a goal that I had. And clearly, over many decades, for too many years, but more years than I can care to remember, I have worked through the business and through all different facets to work up through the ranks, so to speak. And I started on the factory floor, and then went up through middle management, and then up to management. And I've been, I suppose, lucky that I've been through private equity and gone to public markets and all that, and here I am 35 years later.
Let me ask you a little bit more about your father. I gather he is now retired, but is he still active in the business?
Not at all. He retired, I think, about 15 years ago. And, I think he still regrets that he retired, but he is not at all active, but he wants to know all the time what's going on. And of course, there are times when I can't tell him, which drives him crazy because, you know, he's not in the company, so I have to respect the bounds of trading, so to speak. So, you know, clearly he loves what's happening. He has himself, with his brother Dermot, who was one of my mentors and a great human being. Dermot and himself have actually bought 2 paper mills since they left Smurfit, and one of those was successfully sold in Finland to another competitor of ours, and then they've just recently bought something down in New Zealand, your part of the world, in a place called the Bay of Plenty, and it's doing a different product than what we make. But so even at 86 and close to 80, they're still actively involved, I suppose, in paper making.
Are they turning up at the factory floor occasionally, bringing you some tea and biscuits?
Well, actually, I think Dermot, because he bought it during the pandemic, is down there right now, and for the first time. And Dad is not; he's not heading there, but there'll be definitely some tea and biscuits and maybe the odd glass of wine.
Now let's talk about your leadership style, because you have won some awards as a leader. What do you think makes a good leader?
The most important thing I would say is to be a communicating person. You know, we talked about this earlier about the pandemic. I think if you communicate with people and you treat people with respect. You know, I read a book called The Goal when I was younger, and it said, you know, it doesn't matter if the guy's, you know, on the factory floor sweeping or it's a boss. Everybody's the same. And sometimes the guy on the factory floor is more intelligent than the boss. In fact, often. And so therefore, you know, you should make sure that that guy is given the respect that he deserves, because he's there for a reason, and it doesn't matter where they are. So I tend to think that one of my real attributes as a leader is that A, I communicate, and B, I treat everybody with respect. And you know, and then when people have to leave the company for whatever reason, we try our best, you know, to treat them with respect too. So as a company, I think we're always fair. We're a familial type of company. I'm the only family member in the company. And I would say that you know, it comes from that kind of culture that makes you a leader that wants to do the right thing for the people of the factories.
And just finally, what are your hopes for Smurfit Kappa in terms of its market position, its role in the world, its role in the industry?
Well, you know, we have a vision statement to be dynamically delivering secure and sustainable returns for all stakeholders, superior returns for all stakeholders. So what is my vision? That is it. I want to be globally admired. You know, it's really important to us to be seen as a company of the future that is admired for what it does in every country in which we operate. And thus far we've been successful, but maybe we don't promote ourselves enough. So I think we need to make people aware of how great a company Smurfit Kappa is. And it is a great company. We have great people with great assets, with great market positioning. And we're making a great product. We're a sustainable product that we have 1,000+ designers that are able to do great things for our customers. We have 65,000 customers across the world, some big, some small, and we try and help them get their essential product, because every product for our customer is essential. We try and get their essential product to the market in the best way possible to help them sell more. And if you say what is going to be the end goal of where Smurfit Kappa is to continue to grow, continue to invest, continue to help our customers, continue to live to the vision to be globally admired, dynamically delivering sustainable, secure and superior returns for our shareholders. And that's really what I want to see happen. And I feel really proud of the management team that we've assembled. I feel really proud of the whole breadth of the company, the investment plans that we're putting forward to really help our own business, but also help our customers. And that's will be my legacy, is we have left this company way better than what it was, and hopefully somebody will carry it on at some stage in the future.
Tony Smurfit, thank you for joining the CNBC conversation.
Great to be with you. Thank you.
Sadly, that's all the time we have with Tony. But for more CNBC conversations, head over to the website. I'm Karen Cho. Thanks for watching.
I don't think those people really